Hey. Wow.
Wait.
That was amazing. The technology, you know.
That was beyond amazing.
Being able to create this kind of art virtually is really a special thing.
I'm going to get some brushes out for next time we get the dueling violin.
Goober's already in the chat saying Jean-Luc Ponty.
Nice.
I knew Jen was going to bring a little tiny axe, so I tried to, you know, brought my version. This is as good as I could do.
Yes.
So, and I was trying to match the psychedelic vibe as well. So, how's everybody doing this week? Everybody hanging in there?
Hanging in there, yeah.
Yeah.
I rode my bike 2 times this week. I'm trying to get more, trying to shake off my pandemic sedentary habits.
Right.
Get back out there and do stuff.
Huh.
Well, welcome everybody to Outside the Inn. We are the Travers Larson Band.
Hi.
I like how Scott Baker says, no. What? You didn't like my fiddle playing?
Wow.
Golly. I mean, granted, I don't play fiddle.
But she works so hard. She works so hard. Hey, Eric Davis. I'm just checking out everybody that's in the chat here. So we're going to keep it moving fairly quickly tonight because number one, I feel like we ought to combat last week, which went on for like way too long with nothing. They talk about Seinfeld being a show about nothing. Last week was like the ultimate. That was like a saga about nothing.
Right.
So, and if you guys have not noticed the event out there on the interwebs, this week we have a really, really special guest, and we're excited about that. We'll get to in just a second. But I see Werner is on here, and I just to address last week a little bit, I talked about the upgrades here at the TLV. That's for the new initiated. That's the either the television with an extra L, or it's television, or it's the just TL Vision. I don't know. Anyway, last week we were talking about trying to get some more webcams and digging into a software that would allow us to do some multicam shoots similar to what you're seeing now, but good quality, and would actually, like we could apply the performance aspect of things to that. So we're working on that. And I saw Werner on here, and Werner last week mentioned he might be able to help with some cameras. And indeed, Werner was able to help with some cameras. So
nice.
I'm not going to see them and then some. Yeah, we're not going to see them for a while, but huge shout out to Werner. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Werner.
Yeah.
Yay.
Thanks for the help.
Hope you're doing well up there in Seattle. Thinking about you.
Yes.
And if we ever get on the road again, Werner has a place for us all to sleep in Seattle, he says.
Woo-hoo. Yeah.
He, you know how that goes. Like once you take us up on that once, then it never happens again. And a good example of that would be our next guest here.
Foolishly took us in.
Foolishly took us in one time coming through Florida. But we'll talk all about this guy as we go along. But honestly, barring present company excluded, my favorite bass player, and without
present company's favorite bass player.
Right.
And if it weren't for him and several of the projects he was in, either this band would not exist, or this incarnation or version of it would not exist. There's two main influences on the band, Rush and the other one, and our good friend Dave LaRue is the bass player for the other one. So let's go ahead and bring him in and see if he's paying attention and see what's happening.
Yay! Call up for anything. Are you kidding? I was kidding.
Practicing, are you?
I'm glad I was here for the rendition of the whatever that was.
Did you enjoy that?
Yeah, I wouldn't have missed that.
I was trying to play Psycho.
I'm glad I recorded it too.
Right. Well, the thing I was going to say is when you do stuff like that, you will see some people in the chats that will literally say, are you going to release this? And sometimes they're not kidding. So how you doing, Dave LaRue? How's life in the new world that we're constantly battling in the last few months? You hanging in there?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've actually been pretty busy from a musical standpoint and from a family standpoint. So
yeah,
I really have no complaints. Although a lot of my friends here in Florida and in the Northeast too, I mean, everybody's really hurting because everything is shut down. I mean, nobody's playing. And some guys, I mean, I'm fortunate to not be in the circumstance where I have to rely on playing live gigs to make my living.
Yes.
I mean, today I just, I taught all day down in Orlando. So I went down there and that's happening. But JD, who's one of the guys that works there, lost like half his income because he cannot play. He cannot play any gigs.
Right.
Got a bunch of shows canceled. But I mean, the bottom line is I'm doing fine. I will see how it goes down the road because a lot of the things I am looking at are now, we're talking about a year out before anybody starts playing any shows.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, like, wow. So
this is, for a lot of people, including us, this is the longest break and foreseeable break we've ever had in our entire adult lives.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've never seen, I've never taken the time to take a break like this, and I've never seen anything forcibly make everyone take a break like this.
Yeah.
So in a lot of ways, like you said, you mentioned family. I mean, there's some good out of it in that I think, you're getting to experience a part of life, but speaking for myself, that I haven't experienced in a long time, where I was actually taking a breath for a minute, and sitting in.
Do that. I mean, I'm a big believer in that in life, it feeds our music. And if you become totally internalized and all you do is practice and write and practice, you start to sound like all you do is write and practice, and you're not emoting at all. Yeah. There's nothing, none of your life force is coming through. So we can all sit in our studio forever and just keep doing that. But I find that to tend to be kind of stale after a while.
Yeah. Are you a guy that tries to constantly keep up on playing on a level, though, or do you ever walk away from it for a long period of time?
Oh, I walk away.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty soon, permanently. But I have to every so often. I mean, there was a period a few years ago where I was sick of playing, and I was not inspired at all, and I was only doing enough to make a living. But then some things happened, and it kind of recharged my batteries, and I got motivated again and was inspired again, and working with some people that inspired me. And so I kind of rekindled my love for music and for playing. But yeah, I go through periods of, let's, for lack of a better term, lack of motivation. And as, time marches on, and once I had my son, my priorities changed radically. Right. And so now there's always that dual fighting for my time, the two entities, the musical entity and the work part of me, which has become way less important if I'm not spending time with my son. I did one tour. I went away for 6 weeks and I came back and the kid was like a different kid. I mean, it freaked me out. Like, what happened? So yeah, there's that. But by and large, now I'm staying into the music thing now. I mean, there's been some good stuff going on, and I'm enjoying playing and staying on top of things.
Well, and touching on that, over the last several years, we've done some playing together with your group, which a lot of people nationally may not know of, but Dave LaRue Band with Bobby and Drew. I assume that's part of the inspiration, but those guys are absolutely phenomenal, and it's such a great and fun band to see. Such a great band.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm really lucky to have guys in my area who will basically do it for the love of the music. We get together, we rehearse, they help me organize the music, and we get out and play for next to nothing. And, you know, they never complain. And they're just great players and good guys, fun to be around.
Being that I never knew that you actually would take time and walk away, because obviously there's a level there that only, you know, whenever I see you, we've got our road chops. So I never think of Dave LaRue as a guy that might take a breather.
Yeah.
But when you do take a breather, how much of the material, like, do you tend to have material that sticks, or do you have to completely kind of start from zero when you come back and get ready for a project or a tour again? Like an old one, like say playing with Steve, for instance.
Well, what do you mean? Does what stick? I mean,
does
the songs?
Yeah, like do you feel like that stuff's still under your fingers, or do you feel like you have to completely?
A lot of it is, but I always have to review. I mean, you know, my hard drive is starting to get full, and so I kind of like focus on the project at the moment and try to remember all that. And, you know, as you know, a lot of the bands I play with, a lot of the stuff's pretty involved and complicated. And so I have to go back and review and run through a few things. But generally, the licks and stuff don't go away. And honestly, a lot of stuff that's difficult is part of my practice regimen. I mean, I go back over some of Steve's lines that are always a bitch, you know. They're just part of my practicing thing, and I try to keep them at a certain level. And same thing with some of John's stuff and my own stuff or whatever. So I always try to stay up on most of that, and then just have to go back over song forms and sometimes like little parts that I did, and I'll review that. But I don't remember everything note for note. Like if, you know, Steve couldn't put me up on stage and just say let's play Book of Dreams, or it's like, what? Right. I mean, what did we play that in 1995?
Right.
Yeah, that's not. I don't. Yeah, that's still not up there, or not still up there.
When you're stepping away from things, do you still get a bass in your hands just for the physicality of the chops to stay there, or do you put it aside and then get back in shape?
It's never more than a couple days at the max.
Okay.
Where I actually leave it. But I'm just saying, in terms of real drive and pushing myself to have like an 8-hour day.
Yeah.
As opposed to, now, there's never more than 2 days go by that I don't get in here in the studio and at least play and work on keeping my facility at a certain level. I mean, I have a pretty good idea. I mean, I know where I need to be with certain things in terms of metronome and control. And I can come in pretty quickly and gauge how far I've stepped back, how much work I have to do. So I don't want to go too far. So I make sure I maintain a certain level. And
Gotcha. Should we take a question from a, I was going to say civilian. I don't know if that's the right term, but
from a real person.
From a real person. There's a question here from Werner. Says, how did you approach working on Petrucci's solo album, especially with Portnoy in the picture? Did you think people would expect a Dream Theater John Mayung vibe, or a Liquid Tension Tony Levin vibe, or I assume just do your own thing? That's usually the answer, right?
Yeah. What do you think? I mean,
yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, I've seen you with John many times over the years, and nobody says a word about anything. You know?
That's my gig, man. I mean, it's not Liquid Tension and it's not Dream Theater. He hires me to be myself, and he wants that input. He doesn't say, well, John would play this, or Tom, we did this with Liquid Tension.
Sure.
Hey, here's the new stuff. What do you think? What are you going to do? I mean, he'll direct me in certain, if I got a little out of control, but yeah, by and large, we just do our thing. And this last album was a bear, man. I mean, he sent me a bunch of demos, and the first week I just tried to learn the material. I basically transcribed the whole thing. Couldn't even really practice it because there was so much music and there was a deadline. So I started writing charts and learning these ridiculously fast licks and then putting them aside. And then I had to, then the process was to work on a tune a day and basically learn to play the tune and then track it. So there was a lot of work. I mean, so, I would go back and see what I'd written down for all these, 16th note triplet licks and all that, get those under my hands, work on the grooves and like that. And then knock the tune out. So it was a lot of work. Really great stuff though. John is amazing, man. He's one of the people that going back to what we were talking about earlier, who really inspires me. This guy, I mean, I go on tour with this guy and he works harder than I do. And that blows me away.
That is something.
I mean, he's always working that stuff and he's playing it slow and we talk through things and he's excited about it. And he sent me these tracks and I was just like, are you kidding me? I mean, this guy's getting better. I was floored. Nice. Not to blow smoke, but I mean, I was listening to the tracks. I was laughing. It's like, I mean, can you set the bar any higher? So that's really inspirational to me to see somebody that cares that much and works that hard at it. It's like, maybe I should spend a little more time on this and, work a little harder. So it's, yeah.
I have a question.
Yes, dear. What can I do for you?
So when you are tracking, are you doing that yourself or are you in a studio and you have an engineer or are you running the whole show yourself?
The first album I recorded up in New York with them and we basically, we did a session and we kind of went for drum tracks and kept some of the bass stuff. And I stayed an extra half a day and some tracks I just did from scratch and others I patched up. But this I did all by myself. I mean, with the situation like it was, I didn't really want to go up there. And plus I wanted to stay home. So I tracked it all here by myself.
What rig are you using for tracking?
Well, the main thing I'm concerned about is getting a really good direct track. And that's what they were concerned about. I sent them some amp tracks and I think they used some of what I sent. And then they had some other plugins that they liked for certain things. But I don't know if you can see that. I have the Avalon 737 over there, which you can't really see. But I mean, that just is a great sounding preamp. And I use the EQ section a little bit. And that's basically what I use. That's the sound.
Yeah. Okay.
I've got a.
Is that a very? Sorry, Trav. I'm going to keep picking brains here. Is that a really slow process for you to be your own engineer and run all of that while you're trying to play the parts, or do you find it flows pretty good for you as you get into it? Or
yeah, that's how I make my living. Yeah, I'm so used to it. It's faster for me than to tell an engineer what to do. No, back up here and do that. I went, no. Punch in earlier. No, right. Like I could just nail it. I've gotten pretty comfortable with that. I like it. I can just sit here and it's like, I want to get some coffee.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
All right, Travis, as you were.
I'm looking at the feed. Eric Davis. Hi, Eric Davis.
Hey, Eric.
Eric Davis, great keyboard player on Long Island. He says,
"Can you answer his question?" He said I'm his favorite bass player, so he gets to answer his question.
Nice. He says, "Can you ask Dave what he feels the most difficult Dregs or Steve Morse Band song to play is, if you can remember, and what is your favorite song of those bands, or can you remember that? I know how I'm adding the can you remember because I know how it is talking to Dave.
Yeah. I'm freaking out.
Okay.
That's a tough tune to play.
Yeah.
Unison lines are really difficult from that. There's actually some difficult unison lines in Too Many Notes.
Yeah.
But just that's actually a really easy tune to play, except for this one long line. It's really hard. Night Meets Light is probably the trickiest of all the tunes. And just a funny story to me, anyway, is when I first got the gig with Steve, he said, "Okay, here's a list of songs," and they sent CDs or whatever. And so I'm listening. So first take, I'm listening through. I knew a couple like Assembly Line and Cruise Control. He actually had wanted me to play that for him. But then, so then there's the rest of the set shows up, and I don't know. And I'm listening through. And it's like, oh, this is hard. Okay, better get on that. That's fine. And I listened to Night Meets Light, and it's like this ballad. I was like, I'll do that last.
Yeah.
That's gonna be easy. That's this little slow thing. Okay, it's all whole notes. How hard can that be? So I went through the whole set, and I have like a day left, and I'm like, what the is going on with this? It's like there's not 2 bars of the same meter in a row ever. And there are bars of 5/8, and I'm playing on 2, and it's like, geez, So it was crazy, and I had to catch up to that one. And that tune, when we first started rehearsing, man, I had to count certain parts. If I got lost, you're done. I mean, it's gone. If it gets by you, forget it. There's no catching up. It's like, I'll get it on the bridge. It's like, well. No, then
You're not going to know about the bridge.
Yeah, we'll be 40 bars later where it finally lands on in 3/4 time. But it's really tricky and involved. So it fooled me. And I had to play catch up with that one. And to this day, there's still certain sections where if I listen to Steve instead of paying attention to what I'm supposed to be paying attention to, I get messed up. So I really have to focus on it. But nothing technical in that one.
Yeah. Isn't that just like the most frustrating thing where, it seems so simple, but you have to, we have a few of those too. And same thing. I'm counting the whole time, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I don't listen to anybody else in the whole song. So,
and you're also, you're depriving yourself of the musical joy of hearing the rest of it in order to stay in it.
But
like an emotional discipline.
Yeah, there's one part in Night Meets Light that is Steve's playing this gorgeous thing, and I want to gravitate to that.
Yeah.
No.
Right.
Stay away.
Don't go towards the light. Don't go towards the light.
Where's one?
I have the unique position of knowing exactly what Dave's monitor mix is, and there's like just enough of the guitar player for him to kind of know where we're at, but that's about it.
Yeah, well, it's not like you guys have any stage volume.
Right.
I really can't hear your amp or the PA. So, I don't need too much in my wedge in front of me.
One to talk, my brother. That's all I'm saying. One to talk. Mr.
This is the pot calling the kettle black situation right here.
That you guys was pretty much guitar players across the board, right?
Right. So I've got a question kind of based off of the topic at hand, which is all these guys that you've played with. And I mean, obviously now, you're pretty settled into who you are, but obviously has to have been times where you were very much intimidated by playing with somebody that was kind of an icon or a hero, or does that still happen? Has that happened, or have you always been so disassociated with it's just about the job?
Well, I don't really get intimidated by anybody. I get excited about certain people, and it's I get fired up. I mean, first time playing with Dick John or with Satriani. I remember I got really excited when I was out with Joe, and we were doing the G3. And it was the first rehearsal. So I was in Joe's band, and it was the first rehearsal with Eric Johnson. And he came up, and I was like, oh boy. With Eric Johnson. And I wasn't intimidated. I was fired up. I mean, I was ready to go. So I mean, and it was a little nerve-wracking going over Steve's house the first time too. But I just played through. And what I found out really quickly was that he's always yelling at T. So I was good. I was good to go. I mean, I was playing through my parts, and T's screwing everything up, and he's yelling at him constantly. So I had a little, I could ease my way into it. Don't look over here.
Right.
It's funny about that, and I won't get too far into it, but just as along the same lines of being around guys that, maybe were your heroes or icons and now have kind of become friends, being around the Dregs, seeing a band dynamic was really interesting to me, because I've never, it's like when you're just seeing this stuff, as a fan for years. And then when you actually are kind of in the soup, you see a band dynamic and you go, okay, these guys are like every other band.
Yeah, right.
People.
Yeah.
People.
Like everybody's,
I mean, the cool thing about being in the music business, and especially working with some of the people that play on the level that I've been fortunate to work with these people. I mean, they're all quirky. I mean, there's definitely when there's genius there, there's also a little quirkiness there, and in almost every case I've noticed.
Right.
I would go so far as to say a little crazy, more than quirky. Well, sometimes a little crazy.
Some people control it better, and or don't display it as much.
That's
perhaps,
true.
Yeah. And so I kind of just say kind of quirky.
Yeah.
Right.
And there's outward crazy and there's inward crazy. So
freaking mind's like, what is he? What?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, just to give people a little insight into, and don't worry, Dave, don't get nervous, but we've done quite a bit of touring together, and I will say that for who Dave is, based on, and this is just me looking at him as a guy that's, like I say, a guy that plays exactly the kind of bass I've always wanted to hear, and plays with all the guys that I've always really dug. He is not afraid to get his hands dirty, and he's not afraid to be a team player and be just like the best guy in the world on the road. And you wouldn't have to be, yeah. In the long run, everybody has to be, unless you become such a rock star, but not everybody is. And you absolutely are just like such a pleasure to hang with, and
well, yeah, we've had a lot of fun, but it's just, it's just being a normal guy. What the fuck?
Yeah. But a lot of people aren't normal guys, though. That's what we were just saying, right?
I worked with some of them too.
Yeah.
And I tend to not enjoy that so much.
Well, there's a music integrity part of that too, where like you would be forgiven at your position you occupy in the industry if people caught you going through the motions for a song or two in a little place on an off night, when you're doing your band and our band, and I've never seen that once in my life. I've never seen you do anything but throw down as hard as you fucking can. and that's its own kind of inspiration.
And schlep gear at the end of the night.
Yeah, right. You would also be forgiven for not doing that. What's that?
You guys are ridiculous.
Oh. Well. Yeah, but we would not be forgiven for not being that way.
Right. Here's a question.
I have a joke.
Okay.
How many bass players does it take to change a light bulb?
I don't know how many.
Only one, but the guitar player has to show him how to do it.
Oh.
Thank you.
We do a thing every week, and it's about time, usually about halfway through the show. We do a thing on the show, Dave, called Who's the Man? And we won't throw you under the bus and throw anyone out there that you've actually worked with. So, but Who's the Man would be like when you hear people say like David Lee Roth or Sammy Hagar, it's like that kind of comparison. Okay, so here's a Who's the Man that would probably
no right or wrong answer.
No right or wrong answer, but it would probably apply to Dave's upbringing, and this applies to all of us. We all have to answer the question. John Paul Jones or John Entwistle?
John Paul Jones.
I knew you were going to ask that. I knew it.
Not even close.
Oh, man.
And if you want to talk about, well, never mind. I'll leave that out.
Oh, we want to talk about it.
Let's just keep it in the musical realm.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Personalities. Shit'll be all over.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, right. Jen?
Agreed. John Paul Jones. Yeah.
Do you have an opinion, Dale?
I agree, and the more throughout my life, the more I've learned, the more of a unseen force he was in that band, more than people realize.
Especially early.
Yeah, I mean, it's insane.
Records, he was a monster. He seemed to me, and this is just a personal, observation that could be totally off base. And of course the dynamic of the band probably changes as they achieve fame and all that. But he seemed to take a lesser role and seemed to be less interested in the later records. He just wasn't playing with the same fire and creativity that he did on 1, 2, and 3. I was just like, gee, what? Led Zeppelin 2 is like one of the most influential records on my
Me too.
musician. Yeah. I remember hearing the Lemon song going, what the
Oh my God.
Doing?
Really?
What is it?
Okay, Jen, you have to tell this story.
This is literally an origin story for Jen.
It really is. I didn't know it was that way for you. Oh my God. So the Lemon song, this is what's so funny about this. A kid playing the record in my bedroom, and all I heard was that bass line, right? I bring my dad in. I'm like, Dad, you got to hear this. It's the most amazing thing. And all my dad heard, of course, was squeeze the lemon. What the hell are you listening to?
15-year-old daughter.
Lemon? What? No, the bass, the bass. And so that's my Lemon song story, where he was just like, oh my God. And I never even heard the words. So I was like, did you hear that bass line? So that song is just insane.
Cool.
Yeah.
We were discussing your dad yesterday, and he's not.
I think Dad's probably watching tonight.
Did he pick John Paul Jones or John Entwistle?
Me?
What's that?
Dad.
Oh, Dad.
Oh, Dad.
He's probably not. So I'm taking it he's not a John Paul Jones fan.
Well, at this point,
he's with the Lemon song.
Yeah.
Right. Well, he also thought
he ruined my daughter.
Yeah.
Yes.
You can't be what?
He thought Rush meant rulers under Satan's house too. So it was.
It does, doesn't it? I thought it was.
Doesn't it? Wait, what?
You know how hard it is to explain that to teenagers nowadays when like I thought this was the. Well, yeah, okay. When I was your age, grown people were nervous about satanic messages. Forget it. Let's just not talk about it. They're like, what? I thought this was evil. It sounds completely trite. Anyway.
I have another Who's the Man that's not musical if you want to hear it.
Sure.
Go for it.
Kurt Russell versus Bruce Willis.
I like it.
Well, I'm of a generation where I'm going to say Kurt Russell, although I do like me some Bruce Willis.
Be careful there, big boy.
Yeah. I'm going to say Kurt Russell too, and I like the fact that he had the early career and then almost sort of an ironic later career, in the Tarantino type stuff. Well, anyway.
All right. Well,
Dave?
my other one was okay. I have one more, and then we'll end this whole Who's the Man.
And then we'll move on to music again.
Yes. Bringing up Quentin Tarantino versus Alfred Hitchcock.
Oh, wow.
Oh, interesting.
Well, Quentin Tarantino would give it to Alfred Hitchcock, so I'll give it to Alfred Hitchcock.
That's true.
I go that way too. I'm big on guys who sort of blaze the path.
Pioneer.
Yeah, this is sort of like Carson or Letterman.
There is no Tarantino without Alfred Hitchcock.
Right.
Exactly.
True.
Exactly.
And that's nothing against Tarantino, because I love some of his work, but so I mean that's why I would give the nod to Hitchcock.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Yep.
These are the points of discussion. Okay, sorry, enough of the cultural Who's the Man. Go ahead.
I got a John / Goober question, just so Dave knows. We call him Goober. This is a huge fan of ours up in the Bay Area who's seen you many times, and he's on the Steve Morse chats online and stuff.
Oh, Dave knows Chelsea. You remember Chelsea?
So John is friendly with Chelsea. But we call him Goober, and it's stuck to this day because the first time we met him, I said, "What's your name, man?" He goes, "Oh, I'm just some goober that likes the band." And so now it's stuck, and he's stuck with that for life. But he wants to know: do you have any sense of whether there will be any new Steve Morse music or Dregs music?
That's still up in the air. Steve and I talk about it a lot. I mean, I'm hoping this time off allows him to maybe heal a little bit, but it's going to be tough. So we'll see. And we're talking about, and I'm always throwing ideas at him because there's nothing I'd rather do more. And above all, beyond guitar playing, is I think Steve is a truly great American music composer. Yes. And so I would like to hear more of his music where he takes the time to create it. And I love that process because I tend to be part of it, even if it's just facilitating it by being there with him and trying things and playing behind him so he can try things, making a suggestion here and there. But nonetheless, I'm there to see it and be a part of it. And when we take that time, great things happen. So we're even talking, we may have to do something as a do the Steve Morse Band, maybe even as a quartet or we have to look at every option and see what's possible. So I can't really say. I certainly hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah. We all do.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm sure Steve appreciates that.
Talking about Flying Colors from Werner, wants to know what the dynamics are. Is it a collaborative, or does any one band member really call the shots? If so, who? Hint, hint. But seriously, so how does the Flying Colors project?
I pretty much run that show.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah. You just
I kind of sign parts for everybody, and so, yeah. No,
and you blame it on the drummer if it doesn't go well, right?
Right. No, it's a completely collaborative process. Nobody's allowed to bring a song to the writing sessions. Neil showed up with a song one time, and this is early on before we established this rule. And he had, I wrote this great song, and he goes through this whole thing, and we all just said, well, that's for the Neil Morse Band.
Right.
Got it.
Yeah.
We're not doing that. And we all said from then on, you can bring a chorus or a verse idea or a riff or whatever, and we just jump on that and go. And it's neat. I mean, sometimes I remember Steve brought in one of his pseudo-classical things, but we're electric. And we were like, yeah, okay, so what? And we put it aside, we move on to the next thing. And like 2 songs later, Portnoy says, hey, you know what would go there? That thing Steve wrote that we were looking at on Wednesday,
Right.
Got a great mind for that. So we'll pull that in, and that may become the interlude to another song. So everything sort of stays on the table, but we do everything together, and everybody's talking and making ideas. It's amazing to watch. I tell you, those guys are really freaking prolific. I mean,
does Casey specifically?
Go ahead.
Sorry, does Casey specifically write the lyrics, or is that also collaborative?
That's collaborative too, but mostly Neil and Casey.
Okay.
Yeah, and those guys, it's pretty amazing. They some songs they'll have at least the topic of the song before we've even written the whole melody. I mean, they'll start singing these lines off the cuff, and all of a sudden that's the hook, and it stays that way till the end. Like the working title becomes the title, which you don't. Normally it's like okay, we'll call this one I Had a Diet Coke, and it's like, okay, let's go over the Diet Coke song, and of course that never ends up being the title. But these guys start singing hooks, and then throughout the course of us rehearsing the tune, they'll start adding lyrics to it, and the next thing you know, there's a verse or part of a verse that may get changed, but nonetheless it's starting to take shape already.
Yeah,
so it's pretty amazing. And then once we're through that and we've tracked everything, Neil and Casey really get down and they hammer it out together.
Yeah.
When you say tracked everything, are you talking about final tracks or more like the blueprint for doing the record as people hone their parts?
No, both. Some of the lyrics have already been worked on, but generally the way we work is we write a song and we lay it down. We get a template for the tune and we do a rough demo, and it's really horrible. I mean, nobody even knows the parts. We're just trying to get through the chord changes. They're singing the melodies, and we get a close approximation of the drum part. We put in any tempo changes or time changes that we need to do, and then we have a finished template. When we have all the finished templates, Mike cuts the drum tracks, and then it comes to me. And even then, once it comes to me, all I really have is drums. And I create a lot of my bass stuff at home. All I did was play Roost to try to keep up with the progression as the tunes are changing all the time and morphing into this and that. So a lot of the creative part for me comes in the studio after the fact. So I create next, and then it goes on to the other guys, and they add their parts.
Do you have the roughs at least to kind of give you a sense of what you're dealing with, right? I mean, yeah. That's kind of what I was curious about, because I couldn't imagine for myself putting the final thing together the day you wrote it. You know what I mean?
Oh no.
Yeah.
Well, we put the template together,
The template, sure, but that's more of the composition, right? Versus
it's the composition, and we'll hack through and get all the hard licks that we usually figure what those are gonna be, and we lay them in there sloppy, but nonetheless we play through. And so when I go back and I get the tracks I can listen to, it's like, what is this? Oh, that's what that was. Yeah,
Gotcha.
I remember everything, but so that's pretty much how we work. But it's totally a collaborative process. Nothing gets written until we're all in the same room. Well, I mean, that's not true. People bring in snippets, but no songs are formulated till we're all sitting together.
That's cool. So regarding the artwork for the Flying Color stuff, are you guys using the same artists for all of the releases?
No, I think we've used different artists on every one. This time we had to pay the guy who created the weird guy with the tile, the robot thing, or whatever that thing is, where the things are falling out of. I don't know what you call that, but so to use that again on Third Degree, the original artwork actually had a guy holding up the wall or whatever the picture was. I'm so unconcerned about artwork.
But it's great artwork. That's why I asked.
No, I agree and I appreciate it, but I just could care less. But anyway, so there was a guy. I mean, they send me all the proofs, and I have to just say, hey, yeah, fine. Mike, you decide. Right. And so the original one was a guy like in a suit or something holding up this wall or whatever it was. And and I think Steve said, why don't we get that guy from the first record?
Right. Okay. Yeah.
That weird creature from the first record to do that instead of some guy who's just sort of, from nowhere. And so we asked the guy if we could use it, and he said, sure, for $1,000.
Yeah. Those friggin' artists, my word.
Yeah. Jen, you the first time.
Jen gets curious about this stuff because she's that guy in our band. She's the one off hunting down the visuals to make it. Well, cool.
I think the visuals for the Flying Colors records have been really cool, and it has a Hugh Syme kind of thing going on, and I've always appreciated it. So I was wondering if it was the same guy.
Vibe to it, and reusing that kind of emblematic guy. It puts a certain unity to the conversation.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
The theme running through. So I like that idea too, but it costs us.
Right. Well, and even the titles themselves, it seems like you're referring to the second nature and then the Third Degree. Like I think that's cool too. And
that Mike always gets excited about that. So he'll send us an email that has 10,000 things with three,
right?
Third Degree, third stone from the sun. Oh, that's been used. Can't use that.
Right.
And there's,
Jen's world right there. Art concepts. Yes.
Your dad just said, what is Travis's middle name?
Why is my dad? Okay.
He is watching.
Hi, Mike.
John Paul Jones or John M. Whistle.
Yeah, right. If he answers that, then Trav will say his middle name.
Right. This is a question from Wayne. Hi, Wayne. How are you? I hope you're feeling better, buddy. Wayne's a big fan, and he took a fall off a ladder and broke his back a few weeks ago, but he's coming back.
Wow.
Wayne wants to know, and this is a good question. I actually have a fairly detailed answer for this, but I'll ask Dave first. Which gigs are more satisfying, the huge shows or the small, intimate clubs?
Mm-hmm.
You want me to go first?
Yeah, go ahead.
I like the smaller shows. I actually like sort of a medium-sized shows the best, where I'm above the crowd. I mean, I'm on a stage. I'm not, on the floor of the bar.
Right.
And the people are standing right there.
And your feet are
where it's up, a 500-seater or something, and you're up on a stage, and there's some production and lights, but the people are still right there.
Yeah. And kind of like our Tampa show over the summer.
I sweat, and there's people right in front of me, and you get that energy. There's nothing like that. I mean, and then I've played in front of 50,000 people, and they're so freaking far away, and the sound is so awful. It's just like, oh God, yeah, okay. How many more songs? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, and I have a similar input to that. I will say, as in terms of the question being which is more satisfying, I will say, musically speaking, absolutely, the small gigs are always more satisfying. because the sound is better, and it's just like Dave's saying, it's more, you know, you're sweating on each other, and it's a thing we used to do back before COVID.
Yeah.
You know?
If I can add one more thing before you finish up too, I mean, musically, the intimacy with the band is greater when you're on a stage where you can actually walk over and talk to somebody, and they're not, you know, 300 feet on the other side of the stage. It's nice to really hear people well, and through the warmth of their amplifiers, you know, and be able to interact. That's more fun for me.
Right.
As
far as satisfying goes, they're both satisfying in different ways, because as a musician, that's much more satisfying. As a guy that wants to actually like make a living, when you walk off a stage after playing for 15,000 people or whatever, you're going, wow, we just did that. And that's exciting in a different way. But,
it is. It's exciting.
But not musically.
But I think, Travis, you mentioned this before, playing to crowds that size, or the crowd is like a one entity. You're playing for like this one thing, and you can't single out the individuals, and you can't sweat on anybody. And it's different just playing for this mass, as opposed to seeing all the faces and the smiles and the head banging and all that cool stuff.
There's a different set of dynamics with both things too. Like as a drummer who, it's fun to have the reins pulled off so you can smack as hard as you can. But I've learned recently that I understand the dynamics of small to medium places better than I understand larger places, just because we've done it more. And
I agree. I mean, I've played a bunch of big shows, but not that many that it's just natural to me, like it is going into a medium size or small venue where it's just like that's home.
The
other thing is like, oh, this is a big production. Oh, geez, you know. Audio is always weird. It's more difficult in some ways when you're in rooms.
Do you get? Go ahead, Jen.
I was gonna. You typically use in-ears on those larger shows, right?
That was my question.
I do, and that's a kind of that's a mixed bag too. When touring with Satriani was nice or Petrucci, because we had the same monitor engineer every night and the same monitor console and all that stuff. The last Flying Colors tour was a nightmare, because we had a different engineer and a different console every night, different in-ear mix, and that could be not good.
Right.
You know, if you got this really bad mix screaming in your ears. Yeah. And, oh man. So that was tough. But if you're carrying your own production, it's great. You know, once you dial it in, you're set for the tour. You know it's going to sound like every night. But I mean, looking back now, there was one night that was great on the Flying Colors tour where the guy was really good engineer and just knew he could tell what I wanted, and he dialed it in. I'm like, okay, I could play anywhere on the stage, and it just sounded awesome. The other few nights were not so good, and it actually made it difficult. And in retrospect, had I known that, I would have dumped them for those shows.
Yeah. Well, it makes all the difference in the world. That's in the rare chance that we can actually have the resources to bring Kip. It's made, like last summer, best sounding tour of our careers. And the best sounding tour before that was when we took him out the last time, Right. And the only other times it's any good is usually when we're playing with you and we've got like the small EV system and we're running stuff ourselves,
Right.
Walking around with the iPad.
Yeah, exactly. We kind of go ahead, Jen.
Well, I have a question.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the LAX project, if you don't mind.
Well, that's something that kind of Glenn and I have been doing. Glenn Alexander, who lives in New Jersey, Northeast, where I'm from. We've been playing together for a long time. We started out with a band called Stretch that was sort of really more of a fusion band. It was instrumental. And we did like Weather Report kind of stuff and Alan Holsworthy things, Return to Forever, Stanley Clarke, all those kinds of things we were playing and writing our own music. But that's kind of where we're at. And we just had a certain chemistry that we've always enjoyed. And so we kept playing together over all these years. And at one point he started singing a couple tunes. Glenn started singing a few tunes at the end of the stretch run. We would close the night with a blues or something, and he'd sing. And then one day, a couple years after I'd moved down here, he sent me a couple tunes and he said, "Hey, I've been working on these songs. What do you think?" And they were vocal tunes. It was the bluesier side of things. And I liked it. I said, let's start working on them. So I got involved and started tearing some of the tunes apart. And we, fancied them up a little bit. And, had me overplaying as usual. And,
I'm going to use that phrase from now on. Fancy it up a little bit.
Yeah. And, well, we started working together on it. And then I wrote a couple things actually for the record too, and brought those in. But yeah, really, it's just an extension of a long time friendship.
Yeah, cool.
And we've always enjoyed playing together, like I said. And so we've kept it alive, even long distance. And we worked on the material actually a while back, and then did a couple more later and said, look, we got an album, let's throw it out there.
Yeah.
So we did. And
when did that come out? Was about 8 months ago or so?
Yeah. And of course, right as we got it out, and there was an agent who was getting us shows all across the Northeast and the Midwest, and we're ready to go on the road, and guess what happened?
Yeah.
Right.
All gone. Yeah, but they want to book us again in 2021.
Yeah.
Over 2021.
We're all crossing our fingers, right?
Yeah, what we're doing now is we started actually working on it, another record. We started writing some tunes,
Nice.
We're sending stuff back and forth while we're stuck in our homes.
Cool.
Yeah.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
So. Larry Dickey asked a question. This kind of goes back to when we were talking about Zeppelin and stuff, but he wanted to know if there's who are the early bass players that really inspired you? Like a couple of guys, obviously John Paul Jones.
Yeah, John Paul. Me or Jen?
Yeah, well, you. I think everybody knows. Jen is.
Nobody gives a shit about what I gotta say.
Jen's guy is right here. If you're looking at the screen.
Well, I mean, I think the first music that I really loved in terms of, more modern stuff is Beatles stuff. I started listening to the Beatles, and even being a non-musician, I appreciated the songwriting that they had, and I love that stuff. And of course, Paul McCartney came through, and it's funny because I wasn't even a bass player at that point, but those lines, and then a lot of the unison lines with George always came through. So I always loved that stuff. But then I got what got me into playing rock and roll was more like Zeppelin, and then I gravitated really early towards bands that played more complex things and jammed a lot. I liked, from Yes and Rush, of course, the more, I guess we would call them proggier bands, all kinds of meter stuff and loud bass and difficult lines. And I loved the Allman Brothers and bands like that. The Live at the Fillmore was another incredible record where they just jammed. These songs are 12 minutes long, and I love that stuff because I couldn't figure out what's going on, and they would play in meters too, and that, I guess that's part of where Zeppelin too, but they've always kind of loved the bluesy thing, and Greg Allman's voice is just amazing. But it was really Dwayne Allman soloing and Dickie Betts soloing and Barry Oakley on that Live at the Fillmore album, just playing all over the stuff. So that's where a lot of the improv, my interest was piqued. It's like, how do you jam like that?
Yeah, right.
That was the puzzle. It's like, how do they know what to do? And they keep it going, and then they're answering each other and they're just making the shit up as they go. As they go along. And to me, that was really intriguing. So that sort of set me on that road. But early on, like I said too, I guess because I decided to be a bass player from the get-go, I was drawn towards instrumental emphasis, like Yes and Rush and the Allman Brothers, as opposed to pop bands or bands like even Van Halen or stuff like that. I love Van Halen, but it's just a guitar-heavy band with a bunch of other people playing.
Right.
Basically interchangeable other people. So, I mean,
that's a real musician talking right there.
Yeah, right.
Some Van Halen stuff's amazing. And it's just the first thing that came to mind as more mainstream song form, regular old stuff that just didn't intrigue me as much as the other stuff.
Yeah.
Yep.
I got a couple of, I got a question that's really more of a comment. I think it answers itself. It says, how did you guys become superhuman musicians? You're all insane. I think he pretty much answered his own question.
You're all insane, right?
Eric Davis asks, this is a good lighthearted question, and I actually have an answer if Dave doesn't, but any funny T. Lavitz stories?
Yeah, he's a huge T fan.
None that
he's a huge T fan. Yeah.
None that I can tell.
Okay, I'll tell you one that you can tell. This is just this is a good balance between Steve's personality and T's personality. But they were driving from Sacramento to Ventura one time, just the two of them in the car, and T had his camera and he was taking pictures the whole way, and he was driving at the same time, and Steve was like losing his mind.
Oh yeah. I'll vouch for that. We go on the road, and T had to drive. Like he didn't like to be a passenger, so he would drive. So he'd drive, and he would constantly turn around and talk to you and wheel. Like, so.
Oh, no, not one of those.
Get over. So he's turning around, talking to us in the back. He's like, no, look forward. Always. So this could go on for 3 hours, so we got to Cleveland, you know. It's funny.
Yeah.
I mean, I miss.
And generally speaking, Steve's the guy that needs to drive too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a man after my own heart, really. Yeah.
He'd rather be in control of the vehicle.
Yeah. T must have really wanted to drive.
Right.
Yeah.
We had a driver like that. Remember, Trav? It doesn't matter if I say his name, but like whenever
Jerry.
he would, whenever he talked, he would hit the accelerator. It was just a reflex.
Oh, yeah.
He'd be talking, and he'd be like, "Oh, so what are you?" And you'd be like,
"See guys do that."
And I get car sick. That's one of the reasons I have to drive. Is I can't handle that. And he'd be also the guy that would look back, jerk the wheel, and accelerate as he talked because he got excited. He'd just be like on the freeway doing this,
I don't know. I guess I haven't really sort of come to terms with this yet, but do you have any really awesome Scoots stories that you can share?
Yeah.
There's a couple.
That you can share. That's the trouble with all you crazy musicians.
I mean, we went. Yeah, I spent a lot of time on the road with Scoots. He just. All I can say is he was a great friend and.
Yeah.
Different kind of guy. Really, really good at what he did. But he knew what he wanted, and he handled things his own way all the time. But he was really good to me. So.
You were there, but you may not have been privy to the story, but did Scoots tell you the story about playing in San Francisco at the, what was it, Dale?
Slims?
It's Slims, yeah. Where,
by the way.
He was teching in front on the side of the stage because they couldn't fit him on the stage with the workstation. And this guy kept coming up and setting his drink on the workstation until Scoots lost his shit and said, "Get the F out of here," and screaming at the guy. And it turned out, who was it? Do you guys remember? It was Boss Skaggs.
Owner of the club. Yeah. Kicked him out of his own club.
But the story involved you because at the time he was working on a bass problem. He goes, "Dave had a bass problem. So I had grabbed his bass and I'm down there and I'm doing this. And this guy keeps setting his drink on the workstation. And I'm like, hey, man, get it off." And then he did that 4 times and just went off on him and grabbed a security guy. And the security guy didn't do anything. The security guy just kind of put his hands up. And then later on.
That it was Boz and
someone was like. I think it was the security guy when the show was over.
Oh, okay.
When the show was over, the security guy goes, "That was Boz," and he goes, "Oh." and he said that the really messed up thing was that he goes, "I worked for Boz back in the 70s." So, anyway, well,
a lot of
Dave
there.
Yeah. We're getting close here. One of the things about tonight, usually we always have our guests on for an hour, but usually we'll do a half an hour before we bring them on. But in honor of Dave having a child that gets up in the morning and being on East Coast time, we thought we'd keep it, basically tight and compartmentalized tonight.
Don't worry about me. I mean, I'm okay.
I have another joke.
Okay.
Why are upright basses like elderly parents?
I don't know why.
Both are unforgiving and hard to get in and out of the car.
I'm looking at. I'm seeing if there's any more questions.
That's pretty dark.
Leave it to the bass player to be dark. So,
I thought it was funny. I don't know.
So, as far as where we're at, just to kind of give a shout out to what's going on with you, Dave. You've got the new record out, the LAX record. What's that actually called? Just so we
LaRue Alexander.
Okay. And that's out there available now. And then the Flying Colors record is going to be available, or is available also.
That one came out earlier in the year, and then the live album is coming out in September, I believe.
Okay. Yeah. And then
and John's album will be out. John Petrucci's new album will be out also in September, I believe.
Gotcha. Oh. So everybody keep an eye out for that. And
are you in the midst of working on that, or have you finished your tracking for the Petrucci record?
Oh, it's done.
It's done. Okay.
Yeah, I just got the mixes the other day. Yeah.
Oh, good. Okay, cool.
I listen to them.
Is there, without obviously both guys are completely freaking amazing, but is there is there a viable difference between, say, I'll say playing live, because records are records, but playing live between the two mics with Petrucci?
They're very different.
Yeah.
Yeah, their feels are very different. But they're both great. I mean,
absolutely.
I love them both. And I'm comfortable. I play with Portnoy all the time, with Flying Colors and stuff. And I actually did the first G3 tour I did with John was with Mike Portnoy.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And then, but it was also fun to play with Mike Mangini. I mean, where he puts the groove is totally different than where Portnoy feels it. So I have to kind of adapt to that and try to make that work. I'm approaching the same tune with different feels,
Interesting,
because of the way the drums are feeling. So, but they're both great, and different time things, different feel things. But I mean, I'm just blessed to be able to play with several drummers like that,
Yeah.
And most people are blessed if they can play with one drummer like that at some point in their career. So,
right.
We are.
Really lucky. Yes, you are. And I've been fortunate to play with him too. My list goes on and on. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. If we lived closer, I imagine that this whole thing would be more incestuous. But it's an honor to have become good friends with you over the last several decades, Dave. And we love you a lot, and we're always happy to spend any time we can with you and spend any time playing music with you that we can.
Well, I appreciate that, and right back at you guys. So it's always fun, and it's a family thing. So
yeah, and eventually, hopefully, this will all be back on the road again, and we'll, maybe we'll even do a Cheesecake Factory at the NAMM show again someday.
Yeah, I wonder if they'll have a NAMM show. Yeah.
Yeah, this year I think they're having a scaled down one, but nobody's going, or I should say next year.
In January?
January's already been talked about, and I think it's there's some level of it that's going to happen, but all the companies that I'm talking to are basically sending out notices saying they won't be there. So
yeah, that's what I figured.
Yeah, but so it might be another year.
Yeah,
but we'll have to write those, 3 more albums next year.
That's all we can do. Yeah.
So before we go, everybody, I just want to mention that, DaveLaRue.com, and Dave also has a Facebook page that he occasionally updates with things. And also all the Travers.
Take care of my social media.
You do a better job than in the early days. I'll give you that.
You have better things to do.
I know. Like be a good bass player or get your social media together. I think we know where that stands. But we and also Travis Larson Band, all the links are in the description of this very feed right here. So check that out. And just so you know, Dave, I sent you a message on Facebook with the link for this feed if you want to post it, but you have your posts shut off. So if you want to post it after the fact, or if you want anybody to
buy there lately.
right. You have to have your guy do it. That's always the claim. I got to get my web guy to do it.
Yeah. I'll talk to my people. I'll get them on that. Yeah.
So I think everybody's got their questions answered. I think we're going to sign off for the night, and appreciate everybody listening, and I appreciate you hanging out with us, Dave.
Yeah, thanks so much. And thanks to all of you out there in internet land who signed on and asked some questions, although we didn't get to too many of the live comments. It's kind of like we're just hanging out in a room talking like we always do.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, whatever. Who's that? And we don't care.
That's what it is. That's why people are hanging out with us, because it gives everybody a chance.
Yeah. I just want to let them know that I appreciate them hanging out with us, even though it's just the conversation gets confined to the four of us.
Right.
You know, I'll say this, Dave, and Travel backed me up. I literally was telling him this a couple of days ago. As a guy who is at the top of what he does and just it's reasonable for people to be intimidated by you. You always manage to steer it in the direction of be inspired instead of intimidated by it. It's really cool. I remember I was at a clinic of yours years and years ago when you came to this area to do one, and somebody did the, I want to throw away my bass after seeing that. And you kind of did the, well, the idea is to be inspired, right?
And I have students and people that tell me that all the time. That's one of my favorite stories too. I've had students say, man, oh geez, I saw that guy play. I just wanted to throw my bass away. Yep. And I said, man, I went to see Jocko play, and I said, I'm going to play like that.
There you go.
I didn't say, I mean, I felt like a little, just nothing. But it's like, that's what I'm going to do. Damn it. Right. Get there. I'm going to figure out how to do that. So it fired me up.
And to the listeners who don't see it, the rest of that story is Dave does work that hard. Like you're the one guy I've seen in the dressing room besides me with the metronome, like scaling it up, getting ready, getting warmed up. It's nothing's left a chance. Anyway,
I'll say this too, just to follow up on that. Dave is so passionate about it that we talked about a lot of guys that are not that great, easy to work with, but Dave is a guy who will get passionate and he'll get angry and some Jersey will show. But like Dale said, it's never taken negatively. It's always taken with I completely understand where he's coming from because of what he's doing and why and how well he's trying to do it. So that's always, it's never been a thing. I mean, I've had some fun moments even watching your new band get to know you and watch them around you. And it's like, no, it's going to be fine. He's just got it's got to be the way it's got to be. But I mean that with all the love in the world, and I mean that because that's why you're so great, So
okay, that's enough.
All right, we'll shut up now.
Sorry, I started it.
All right, we're gonna jam out, and we will hopefully talk to you and see you again soon, Dave. If you want to pick up a bass,
are you gonna hang out for a minute after?
Hang out for a minute after, Dave.
Okay.
I'll pull us out and then bring us in.
Backstage after the show.
I mean, since you do this so often, I'd love to come back sometime too. We can do some more. What was it?
Outside the who's the man?
Yeah. You can always bring your own.
Oh yeah, I'll play with you.
Right.
Okay,
go ahead, guys.
All right, play it out, Dale.
All right.
I was waiting for low end.
Oh, that was down.